So I want to talk to you a little bit, Cadman, about security clearance appeals. Now, before we get into it, there's been a lot of name changes about organizations and the flow of information in the security clearance field. What used to happen is the adjudicator used to be CAF, which was the Consolidated Facility Adjudication Facility of the Army. 2012, that was changed. It was changed to the Department of Defense Consolidated Adjudication Facility, and then that's where they put all of the branches into this one facility, because each service organization, each service had their own adjudicator before that. Then in 2022, the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency changed it to now it's the Adjudication and Vetting Services, right? Just in 2022. So bottom line is there's an organization of bureaucrats that will adjudicate these clearances. And when these clearances come back and they say, no, we're going to revoke your clearance, what are the avenues that a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman has about appealing that decision, that adjudication?
So essentially, there are two different ways to appeal it. The first is a purely documentary appeal. This is much like something like a GOMAR, where you're going to receive the packet, the list of reasons for the decision, and you're going to respond to each of those in kind. You're going to provide whatever documents are necessary, whether it be character letters or perhaps, in the case of a debt, you've paid the debt. The debt's no longer an issue, or it was the wrong debt. It was attached to the wrong person's name, whatever the case may be. Documentary evidence showing why you should keep your clearance. You send that off, and some faceless organization will make a decision based on those documents.
Right. So while there's a centralized adjudication facility, when it comes back for the appeal, in the Army, it goes to the Personnel Security Appeals Board, right? They call it the PSAB. And each service maintains their appeal board. So, the misconduct happens, or the incident, the DROG happens, goes to a centralized adjudication facility, and then it bumps back down on appeal to the service appeals board for security clearances. And so that's the written appeal that goes there, right? What if it's more nuanced, or the context is important, like alcohol-related incident and somebody's going through treatment?
So in those cases, on a case-by-case basis and with good counsel, the soldier can make a decision to go through an in-person hearing.
And that in-person hearing is with the Defense Office of Hearings and Appeals, or DOHA. And what happens there?
So it's essentially like a mini trial. There's going to be the opportunity for the soldier and their counsel to speak, to be heard, to present evidence, whether it's documentary or testimony. You can call witnesses, you can cross-examine. The soldier can make their own statement. They can be questioned in front of this administrative law judge and make a statement and really humanize the case if that particular case warrants that kind of treatment.
Well, and what I understand from those hearings is they're done VTC, right? Most of them anyway. But they are real hearings, right? You're put under oath, you're sworn, and you can testify at those hearings. You're also subject to cross-examination because there's an opposing counsel on that case, or the administrative law judge or the DOHA judge can ask you questions. And so it's real important that you work extensively with counsel before you make a determination as to which avenue you want to do. Written appeals, there's no cross-examination. They get the materials, they look at it, and make a determination. With the DOHA, with the hearing, then you're going to have what is essentially a mini trial, as you said, with evidence, cross-examination, and witnesses. And there's a lot more that can go wrong in those environments, right? Things can go right, but they can also go wrong. The one thing that I tell every one of my clients about a trial is I've won trials I should have lost, and I lost trials I should have won, right? And you just don't know. But some key points that you need to consider is who can appeal to the DOHA or the administrative hearing, the hearing route. That would be active duty, reserve, National Guard, and even Army civilian employees can do that. So what factors should be considered making a determination whether to go the written route or the hearing route?
So one of the first and biggest factors is going to be, what are the allegations? What's the context of the allegations? If it's something having to do with maybe a credit file, it's very documentary in nature. The allegations themselves are kind of born of documentation. And so the response, if the documentation exists, can be very adequate, also being documentation. That's usually not going to be a problem. As you know, every case is different. Every particular set of circumstances are different.
Right.
But like you said, a case that's a lot more intimate, if you will, that involves the humanity of the person who's having their clearance revoked, something like, someone gets a drug or an alcohol problem, maybe due to service-related incidents, due to PTSD, something like that. Those things are very emotional, they're very visceral, they're very human. They do not translate as well on a piece of paper as they do when you see the person, you see their face, you see their reactions. So those are two types of cases that we may consider advising to go a different route with.
Right. I would advise a client typically, look, if we can win this on paper, let's do paper. If we're likely going to lose on paper, but you have a compelling story, your narrative is really compelling, let's do the hearing, right? And that's the route I generally take, but it's a very fact-intensive inquiry. So what happens if the DOHA judge says, you know what, you should retain your clearance? Is the game over?
Well, that would be nice, Will, but unfortunately it's not the case. As is so often the case with these, big bureaucratic processes, it's still going to go back from the DOHA judge to that original board where the documentary appeal goes, and everything, including that judge's recommendation, is now going to go to the board. So even if you win the hearing, you haven't won the case.
So you're telling me after the hearing, it's still going to go back to the PSAB in the Army, right, for adjudication.
Right.
And if that adjudication is no, we're going to still revoke your clearance, then it's over.
It is in that particular process. There may be other avenues that you can pursue to try to get at the problem now that you've exhausted all of the appeals in the particular process for security clearances. But yeah, you have exhausted available.
I mean, you can wait a year and go through the reapplication process. There are other ways to get your clearance back. But if you've gone through this entire process and the appeal and it's no, it's generally a closed case and you'll have to do a reapplication.
That's right.
All right, if you're facing an appeal of a security clearance and you don't know whether to do it in writing or go to a hearing, give us a call. We're the law office of Will M. Helixon. We are your warrior advocates. You defend the nation. We defend you.